Matt Lenihan Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store, Our Kings Competitions. Gareth A. Davies, it's Monday morning after an interesting week of boxing. I mean, Johnny Fisher, Dave Allen, the big rematch that we were speaking about for a long time, had its narratives in the build-up, but ultimately there was a conclusive ending this time.
Yeah, I mean, he righted the wrongs, didn't he, of the first fight, where many of us felt like he won the bout. He felt like he won it, even though he kind of talked around it quite a lot in the build-up. There were times when he said he thought he won it, and times when he said he thought it was close. It was close, but he won it. But this time, with more conditioning, and I think maybe an admittance from both Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen that maybe Fisher fought the wrong fight and should have put it on him a bit more than he did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was understandable in some ways the tactics that Johnny did have, and he wanted to kind of get ahead in the fight and then hold on down the stretch. You have to applaud him for taking the rematch, but it was a very tough night for him in terms of what happened in that fifth round with a very emphatic knockout.
So a couple of things I want to pick up on. You mentioned there's two things. Dave said after the first fight, in an interview, I believe it was with IFL, he said, look, for me, I'll take the rematch, no problem. For him, it's probably the wrong move. And then there's another thing I noticed. So in the build-up to this, when they do the head-to-head, Dave actually said, you'd just be best off boxing me on the back foot, make it really easy for yourself. And when he said that, I thought, there's no way he's employing him to box and move for the fight. And when I saw the fight unfold, I thought, they're actually doing this. And, at some point, there will be an engagement, and it will be how much fuel is in that tank. But look, I suppose you've got to learn, and you only find out the hard way in boxing. But what were you surprised at how conclusive it was?
Um, well, yes, because it was a shocking knockout. But I think to your point that you were just making, when Johnny Fisher was using the ring and circling, and Dave Allen was just walking him down, that was maybe the moment to step forward and land some combinations on Dave and get some deep respect from him in the fight. Because I think Dave said afterwards that Johnny was landing well to the body every now and again as well. He was feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, the Tibbs, the Fishers had come up with a different game plan this time, and they were sticking to the game plan. I mean, it looked like it was going all right for 4 rounds.
Yeah.
The first round you could have shaded to Dave as well. It was a close round, but most people would have scored those first four rounds for Johnny Fisher. But then there was a slowing of Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen then in the clinch, at close quarters, very dangerous.
Yeah.
And a really emphatic, dangerous, vicious finish.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, it was a vicious finish. It was whop to the body, the head, body, head uppercut. And Johnny Fisher, poor old Johnny Fisher, was out before he landed.
Yeah. It was in hindsight, and I know it's sort of after the horse was bolted. Do you believe that it was the right thing to do to take this rematch? Because it's all we're moving into that day and age now where undefeated records, like, they are what they are. We can always rebuild. In hindsight, did he maybe need a couple more before going into that, or is it a case of, well, no, look, for what we're trying to build you through, you should be beating a Dave Allen. What's your thought process when you think about it now?
Well, in hindsight, yeah, you'd say that have a couple of fights, fudge over the fact that it was very close, or you got the boxing gods were smiling on you, and you could say that. But at the same time, I mean, I've seen Johnny Fisher speak yesterday, and it's good that they haven't gone into their shell at all over it, both the father and the son, and that they've been out there and done lots of interviews and said it was a bad night and an off night, and Johnny shed some emotion in front of the cameras as well, which
Yeah.
I think fans love that. The boxing community loves that honesty with people when they're like that. And I saw him say in one interview, and maybe this is a good thing for him, that he's lost a fight and the pressure's off him. He feels like he's just going to go out there and fight now. And if he had just gone out there and fought in the second fight, it might have been a different outcome. And that is a really good and strong and resonant way of thinking about it, and he's dealt with it. He's dealing with it already, and he's got that very strong familial scaffolding around him anyway, and that will have been there for him yesterday. I saw his mum in the change room with him. I'm sure his brothers were there as well. It was
Yeah.
his sister's birthday yesterday, I heard on one of the interviews, and and they're still thinking about Johnny. They're a very close family, as you know. I mean, I know the family. I have no spite or resentment or anything towards anything that happened in the build-up between the first and the second fights. Given Big John Fisher unhappy with myself and Spencer Oliver's commentary, I never really, I mean, I peeked a couple of times at it, once in the interview on IFL with him, but I've got no ill feeling towards them. They've kind of blocked me out and they don't talk to me, but they're not hostile to me. They're not aggressive towards me. They're just, I mean, I might get the odd stare actually in the last 6 months, but
Yeah.
and I got a little bit of it from the Bosch Army in the build-up last week when I went on Wednesday.
I've seen that, yeah.
But I take that in good nature because they're huge supporters of Johnny, and yet the family as well they're invested emotionally in his life, his career, and all those things. So it didn't give me any pleasure to see him horribly knocked out at all. I'm pleased for Dave Allen. He's an amazing story, but I think Johnny, by the look of it, is not done. He'll dust himself off and he'll come back. Who he fights against is a difficult thing at the moment because there aren't obvious people you see him against. With Dave Allen, I've even suggested over the last 3 or 4 days that Dillian White, David Adelaide, even Derek Chisora. Apparently, Derek Chisora didn't like the idea that Dave Allen was being suggested as an opponent for him by some people. But overall, Dave Allen is back. Momentarily, I thought about a trilogy for Fisher with Allen, but really, realistically, no. Not after. He's really beaten. He's beaten him once and he's knocked him out once, so it's not there.
I was going to say let's move on to Dave Allen because anyone who's sort of watched boxing over the last sort of 10 plus years, if they watched his story, I remember before I was doing this, going to the fights live and seeing him, and you were always, I know I was like endeared to him and his personality. He's from my neck of the woods anyway, up here, Yorkshire, so you get the feeling for what he is, and
Done it.
yeah, near enough. I'll be there this week, but he's one of them sort of characters where it's like he's the working class man of the people, does his bit, and you look sometimes and you go, "There's more in you than you're showing here. Please just show it." And it was nice to see him get that belt to say, you know what, life's
I've
had
got
its
belts. Yeah.
life's had its ups and downs for him, and he's in a place now where he seems to be managing life really well. I know there was a time he wasn't, but now he gets an opportunity as well to kick on and have another fight, and who knows who he could fight. You never know if he gets an opportunity for a British title. What a story that'd be!
Yeah, I mean, David Adelaide and he is a really good fight. It's one that I would make Adelaide the marginal favourite
Yeah,
because he hits so hard.
yeah,
But if Dave Allen was getting paid well enough for it, I'm sure he'd do it. The a Dillian White comeback fight against Dave Allen would work, and given that Dave Allen's riding the crest of a wave at the moment, that could headline a significant arena in the UK, in my view. But I go back with Dave Allen, like you. I have found myself reflecting on his mental health issues that he's very open about. One time that in 2019 he was walking away from the sport, that he's been in the ring with Luis Ortiz, Tony Yoka, David Price, Dillian White already. Fraser Clark on a night where he didn't look like he wanted to be there. I was there that night at the York Hall. It wasn't a good look for him. But he's a very experienced, very wizened, very underrated, and very mischievously with Dave Allen. He's a lot bigger than you think he is. Like from a
yes,
distance, he doesn't look that big, but he's got legs like tree trunks. A torso like an oak tree, and arms like large branches. So, but he's weirdly in proportion for he's the kind of size that you generally see in international rugby front row forwards from South Africa, or he's naturally just big, you
Yeah,
know.
he is.
The Rhino is the perfect description for him. There's something huge about him, and I'm fascinated with this relationship he talks about with his father. He said, "My father's in the pub crying his eyes out having a drink somewhere today," or I think he said yesterday.
Yeah,
But I spoke to Jamie Moore on Saturday night after the bout. He joined us on Talksport, and he said he was absolutely made up over the victory for Dave. And I'd spoken to Jamie in the week as well. I'd spoken to both trainers at the press conference very quickly, and Jamie said he genuinely was in the best condition of his life, and he'd said that to him.
yeah.
And then obviously Dave caps that with, but I am raiding the fridge every night as well. Um, and I said, what about that pot belly to Jamie Moore? And he said he's always got the pot belly. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
how much he trains, but he did train very hard for every session in the entire camp. And it just shows what you're kind of not alluding to. You're actually saying it, which is, look what he can do. Look what he can do when he's
Yeah.
properly conditioned.
And also, I think there's this big misconception, and don't get me wrong, it's good to come in like physical shape. So when you look at someone, you go, he's paid the price. But you don't have to be body beautiful to win a fight. And Pete, I think I spoke to Peter Fury about this many months
Heavyweight,
ago.
especially as a heavyweight.
Yes, exactly. As it's being conditioned to fight rather than having the six pack. And don't get me wrong, if you can do that and you look good doing it, crack on. But it doesn't always tell the full story. But
Well,
yeah,
Tyson Fury went to number one in the world with a
yeah,
body. When you put Anthony Joshua's body next to Tyson Fury's, one is a physical Adonis and one is a guy that's done the best that he can with his huge frame. So it's yeah, exactly. It takes all shapes and sizes. It's the it's the fight in the dog that counts.
absolutely. Let me ask you a couple more things. Seen Tyson Fury's Instagram story this morning. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I
Him,
haven't this morning. I've
him,
had a very slow
his,
start.
him and his dad are walking through the airport, and Tyson says something along the lines of, "Don't want to misquote the big man. Big business meetings ahead. Big smile on his face." Last week, I think we've seen 2 photos uploaded of 12 rounds done in the gym. Another one where he's hitting the bag. This isn't somebody who's not fighting again. Surely, I know he's got to
Yeah,
do it for his mental health, but the signs would tell you he's gearing up for another one, whoever it may be. I mean, I think we all hope it's one person, but we seem to be gearing up for it, don't we?
yeah. I have got the radar on myself for that as well, and Tyson Fury's on his way back. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Tyson Fury is clearly on his way back.
Yeah.
He's clearly thinking about it. He's getting ready. It wouldn't surprise me to get an announcement in the next couple of weeks that he's back in training, and then I think these talks will get underway with Anthony Joshua, and I think we'll get the big fight. I wondered if, you know, speaking to his people behind the scenes, and Frank Warren again was on the show on Saturday night, revealing that he'd had a couple of text exchanges with Tyson. I've been just digging around a little bit behind the scenes, and I do think that no one's putting any. Let me make this clear: everyone around him is putting no pressure on him to come back. But when I see um, those Instagram posts, and they were becoming almost daily. And when I see John interviewed in Hungary at Tommy Fury's fight, talking about my son should have me in the corner, and it shouldn't be Sugar Hill Stewart, and all these things, I know that they're talking behind the scenes about a comeback, about that it's time again, and that I think there's the realization he's dealt with the 2 defeats to Alexander Usyk, dealt with the fact that there probably isn't going to be a trilogy fight, even though he'd like a trilogy fight with Alexander Usyk, by the way.
I know I read that there was not talks of, but that I think I can't remember if it was Frank Warren's comments on it that that'd be a fight he'd love
Yeah,
to have.
I can guarantee there have been talks about maybe a trilogy fight in the background, but it's not the right time at the moment. I mean, and because I've spoken to people in Tyson's team who've said we have talked about trilogy fight. Usyk's people do talk to
Team Fury.
Fury's people, because there's a crossover with lots of heavyweights at the moment, remember, and different people, and it's a very, due to the liaisons in Saudi, there's a lot of relationships there, and I think Fury knows that he's better off having the Joshua fight this year rather than next year. Even though I would say a month ago, the feeling was they had till about midsummer next year to make the fight. Otherwise, it would not be viable anymore because it would have slipped away from British sports fans' consciousness.
There's talks. I think Eddie Hearn says Joshua's having some minor keel. I think is it on his elbow, but then
But that's 6 to 8 weeks.
yeah, and then he said he'd be ready. I think are they looking September? Have I heard that right? September, October, roughly.
I think if they do it here this year, it'll be September, October. Obviously, we're looking at late September now for Ben and Eubank on September the 27th. Looks like the tentative date back at Spurs. And you couldn't really, I mean, you could. I mean, when you think Ben and Eubank fought and Bruno and Lewis fought all those years ago, back in '93, I think, a week apart.
Yeah,
Yeah. I I think Fury and Usyk, Fury
and
and
Joshua.
Joshua is too big a fight to have a week before or a week after Ben or Eubank.
Agree. I think it'd be a strange build up that because obviously it'd be like two, big fights going, with each other. I feel like that deserves its own plateau kind of thing. Like when that fight's on, that should take the attention of everyone. Just
Yeah, if
that
it's
fight.
two if it's 2 weeks apart, it's fine.
Yeah.
But a week apart, but when you're getting into that, I suppose they could do it all the way into late October, or if the Saudi Arabians want that fight and they want to do it in Riyadh and again make a big boom, but I think it's better here, obviously because 100,000 people could go to that. Then they
Easily.
could have it over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and the bigger money would be there as a result. It's a fight I've always wanted to have in the UK, and it probably will be a two-fight deal.
Yeah. I need to ask you as well. What have you made of the news about the Crawford Canelo situation? For a long time, everyone was saying this Dana White and TKO will promote the fight. It will be in Vegas. It's now changed the date that's changed, and it's now going to be Seller that are doing the fight. What have you made of that news? So
Well,
Seller being the
UFC have
promoter.
got a big event that weekend, haven't they, in Cancun? Or they've got a big event. I know. I'd be wrong. Might be wrong about Cancun. I can look it up. But the it never made sense to me that they were going to do a massive Vegas event on a Friday anyway.
No,
Saturday's the day, prime time. A late night Friday night for us doesn't work over here. They want to capture the global sports fans' imagination. Maybe, but the only thing I can think logically around it is that Dana White's going to be too busy with his big. I think it's a Noche event, isn't it? Let me just check.
I'm
Are
just
you
having a
looking?
look. Yeah, I'm trying to find it now because I've got a feeling like you that there's an event that weekend. There was also something they were saying about another sport that was going on, I believe, at the same
No, there's the
time. But
NBA. There's the NBA finals or something.
yeah, there is Guadalajara, Mexico. It says to be announced. TBA versus TBA. I don't know if this is an
On,
old
on the
article, but
13th, on the
yeah,
third, yeah. So
on the
I think
13th.
it's a big event for them. So it could be that logically, TKO wants a bit more time look. It's not difficult for Salah with the help of anyone from Matchroom or Queensborough or anyone to help oversee that, or they could even get Top Rank to help them to do it because they've been using the assistance of the largest promoters in the world to be involved. So it might just be a logistical thing. There are no signs at the moment that Turkey and Dana White have any disagreements about things. Quite the contrary. And I think if you go back to the original kind of, it wasn't a press conference, but it was like an interview that they both did with the guy who interviews for Ring Magazine. His name escapes me. I hadn't really seen him before that. But there was Turkey putting pressure on Dana to be the promoter of of the Crawford Canelo in Vegas in September. Do you remember that?
I remember. Yeah, I
And
remember.
Dana, it seemed to it may not have, and they may have been acting, but it seemed to have taken Dana by surprise, which was interesting. They'll work it out. But I wasn't surprised that they moved it to Saturday night. It had always shocked me that it was a Friday night at Allegiant Stadium. It's a must-be-at event for us.
I was going to
It's
say,
extraordinary.
it should be that big an event. You could put it up against the UFC. I know it takes away from it, but you could put it on in Vegas. Surely, still, I know they're saying that's still in play. So Allegiant Stadium, LA, New York, they're
Oh
one
no,
of the
they've moved it
venues.
away. Sorry, they've gone for Yankee Stadium or somewhere, haven't they?
Has that been confirmed that the Crawford Canelo?
I
Have I
know.
missed
I
that?
think they've moved it away from Vegas to New York. Sorry, I forgot to tell you that. Yeah, I did read that somewhere, and it came out of the ring, so it would have been their news. But they may move it again. I mean, it's still a way, way away. So, sorry, they have moved it away from Vegas. That's right.
Is
For
that on the
now.
ring for now?
For now, yeah. I think they've moved it to. Oh, I will. Sorry, it's Monday. It's Monday morning.
No, I'd not seen. Oh wait a minute. Yeah, I'd only seen that it was the promoter had changed from what we thought was going to be TKO
I did
to
see that.
Seller, and that's the only thing. And it just says the broadcaster we have not decided, but the date will be Saturday, 13th of September. More details on venue to follow soon. Right.
No, I'll just tell you. It's going to be. Oh, location to be determined. I
Yeah.
thought they had said.
No, they changed. They announced the Stevenson and Balanga thing for the Flushing Meadows, haven't they, in New York?
Oh,
That's
that's
been
Flushing
announced.
Meadows, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
that's an interesting one to be
More
at.
to the point, not just Stevenson and yeah, Belanga,
Balang-
but fucking Belanga and Hamza Shiraz, who
yeah,
really tried to tuck into Hamza Shiraz. I really wish him well in that fight. It's a really tough fight for him, in my view. I mean, Belanga's very hittable, but he's very strong. And that is going to be a big test for Hamza.
that's
And
a.
I'd love, he really, really arrives if he can beat Belanga.
I've got to say for that fight for both men, how crucial it is because
Yeah,
Balanga, off the back of the Canelo fight, he's got a bit of criticism for how much he's put out there. But look, he's rode the wave. He's promoted himself well.
yeah. The
But
personality as well.
if if he's everything he says he is, he beats Shiraz. But Hamza Shiraz, he's a big boy, and he's moved up to the weight that he'll be more comfortable at, and you'd think maybe that helps him. But the power of Balanga, it's such an interesting crossover, I think, for both.
It is, and the problem is we've got the optics of Hamza's last performance against Carlos Adames in our minds, when he did have one of his worst performances, where he couldn't pull the trigger very much, and I had him losing 9 rounds to 3 that night,
Mm-hmm.
very, very obviously losing the bout in which he drew, didn't he?
Yeah,
So yeah, but it's an event I'm really looking forward to. I heard initially they were going to do it in Central Park, but I
I
wonder
did.
I wonder whether they're just thinking differently after the fact that Times Square didn't deliver in quite the same way. And again, building a 10,000 or 5,000 arena in Central Park might not be the easiest thing in the world, and they might have had. We'll find out, I'm sure, in the end when people do interviews about it. They might have had issues with seating and all of that kind of thing, and not being able to make it as big as they want it to be.
Last one from me, two-parter. The return of Josh Taylor this week, and we also have a
Yeah.
show on in Doncaster Stadium that I know Izzy Ass is very proud of. I think it's important to shout him out for it. GBM are putting on the show. Terry Harper returns. Maxie Hughes versus Archie Sharp, and then obviously I just mentioned there,
You've been
Josh.
paid by them. Are you being sponsored by them or something?
Absolutely not, no. But I think it's important to give these shows the light they deserve.
Absolutely.
And we mentioned about
And it's on DAZN.
of course it is as well. Big show, big moment for them. And Josh Taylor returning, but at a new weight, a chance for him to show what he can do at welterweight against the guy who's there to win as well, not Echo Esserman, not just the guy who's there to be, swept away. What do you make of it? Obviously, it's mentioned there two big events for different reasons.
Yeah, everybody's going to welterweight, aren't they? Jack Catterall and Harlem Eubank going to welterweight. O'Hara Davis was in the studio
Yeah,
with us on Saturday night. He's
he's
making a
back.
comeback on the Amir Khan card against a Tanzanian in Ghana. The land of his parents. O'Hara's a wonderful man. I've always got on well with him, and I love the fact he's doing work in prisons now, and I'm strongly going to support him in doing that. And Echo was on the show as well, and I think this is a fight in which Josh Taylor, 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, number five in the world pound for pound with the Ring magazine, 5 or 6. He went from 9 to 5 or 6 on that extraordinary run when he won the Super Sixes, and then became undisputed
Undisputed.
against Jose Ramirez in lockdown, and lost the belts on the way home on his flight in transit. This is if you count the first Jack Catterall loss as a win as a loss, which I did score against him, he's lost his last three, two against Catterall and one against Teo. So Josh has been out for a while. The Catterall fight was a year ago, was it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, or maybe even longer. It feels like Josh has been away a long time. I have had a large degree of closeness with Josh during his career as well. And I think he probably wants Hank to rise one more time,
Yeah.
his alter ego. It's a test of what he's got left against a guy who is very physical and is a natural welterweight.
Bang on.
And two guys who know each other from the British amateur team over a decade ago. So it's a very interesting fight. Josh has got the Glasgow crowd. He's never lost in Scotland. He won the Commonwealth Games gold medal there. He's fought 10 times in Scotland. I looked it up the other day. He's won every bout. The Tartan Tornado will be, I'm sure, back to his very best. I like him with Joe McNally. I still believe he's with Joe McNally.
He is.
Yeah, I think it's a good combination. I think Joe's a terrific trainer, and leaves no stone unturned. Just really looking forward to the fight. Josh has got to box really well and fight really well in this, and I think it'll be a terrific main event. I think if he doesn't win this, it'll probably be the end of him.
Yeah.
If he does win this, there's all manner of fights. As I say, everyone's going to welterweight. So
Everyone.
there's Josh Taylor, Conor Benn, Josh Taylor, Ryan Garcia, Ryan Garcia, Conor Benn. There's so many fights at welterweight. Jack Catterall moving up to welterweight. Harlem Eubank really going well and growing the whole time.
Tiafimo's moved up as well now, apparently
Tia
fighting
moving up,
Boots.
Devon's there. I mean,
It's
it's
the
a
money
lot.
division again. It's the money
It's
division
big.
again.
And then obviously we must mention Boots Ennis, who is holder of two of the belts in the division, who might be the best of all of them. So, 147 is very, and we use this word, it's very sexy right now.
Yeah. Brian Norman Jr., who interviewed last week as
Yeah,
well, holds one of the belts. I know he wants a big fight, but we'll see what happens after his next fight in Japan. Yeah, appreciate that catch up, bud. A lot to digest as usual, but yeah, another interesting week in the boxing world, and yeah, hopefully many more to come.
exactly. Lovely to see you, Lifesaver. Always a pleasure.
Catch up soon, bud.
Cheers.